Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you all are with me today because if you have been wanting to learn how to piece your quilt blocks in the hoop of your embroidery machine, then you've chosen the right video to watch because that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're going to step you through two of the most basic squares that we use in quilting, the half square triangle and the diamond in a square, and show you exactly how those get pieced. And the process that we walk through today will be the same regardless of the quilt block that you're making. We'll talk about hoop sizes. We'll talk about how you make a 15-inch square if you only have a 4x4 hoop. So I'm so glad that you are with me for today's video. Hi everyone, my name is Diana. I am the owner, educator, and designer here at Sew in Common, and I'm thrilled that you have joined us today. So there might be several reasons that you decided that you're wanting to piece in the hoop. And let me dispel one criticism or myth, I guess, that's out there. Piecing in the hoop is not cheater quilting. Okay, it's not. It's another technique. You ask all of us, I've been quilting for over 50 years. And if you had asked me or my grandmother when we started piecing on a sewing machine, if that was cheater quilting, and a lot of folks would have said yes, but it wasn't. It was just a new technique that allowed us to do the thing that we love doing so much, making beautiful heirloom or fun everyday quilts that we can have for ourselves and share with our families and our friends. So that's the same thing as piecing in the hoop of your embroidery machine. It's just another technique to allow more people that want to do this beautiful art form to get involved. And I know there are a lot of machine embroiderers out there. They're not really into the whole sewing a lot. You can do a little sewing with this process, but all the piecing is done here, which is the harder part or the more complicated part. I don't like using the word hard. It's just maybe more complicated, but anyone can do it. And then there might be a small amount of sewing on the sewing machine, but unlike when we quilt and piece on the sewing machine, you do not need a 1/4-inch foot for your sewing machine. No, not at all. Or any of those special things that you need when you piece on the sewing machine, okay? So because all of the seam allowance, all of that is calculated right into the design file that you use on your embroidery machine. So whether you are just a machine embroiderer who's just wanted to quilt, welcome. You're going to love this. If you are someone who has quilted for years and maybe you've got a little problem going on with the hands, maybe a little arthritis has set in, or maybe like me, you've had carpal tunnel surgery done on both hands. Well, you know, even though I can still do all my other forms of piecing, I like doing my embroidery machine because it takes that extra stress off my hands, which means my hands are going to be in better shape longer. So maybe you have some issue like that. Or maybe you have never quilted ever before and you've heard about piecing and quilting with the embroidery machine and you're like, hey, I just want to give it a try. Welcome in to all of you because this method really is for anyone. Now, of course, you need an embroidery machine, a domestic home embroidery machine. Lots of brands out there, lots of price levels. You check with your local machine dealer and see what they offer. And that's between you and them. But not only do you need the embroidery machine, or you need what's called a combination machine. That's a machine that works as a sewing machine, and with the addition of an embroidery arm, can work as an embroidery machine as well. Not all sewing machines can be used as embroidery machines. So again, talk with your local shops, your machine dealers, and they, trust me, are more than happy to walk you through all of that information. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And I want to share with you one of my cameras and let us take a look at some of the squares we're going to piece today and talk about some of the tools that we need. So I thought for today's video, we would walk through the most basic block that we use in quilting, the half square triangle. It's a square, but half of it is one triangle of fabric and the other half is a different triangle of fabric. And with this square alone, if this is the only square that you learn how to piece and master, which you'll master in a heartbeat, this square will allow you to make tons and tons and tons of different types of quilts. So if that's where you want to start and that's as far as you want to go, check out our video on multiple squares with the half square triangle. I show you just 4 of tons of different ones that you can make with that. If you look at quilt patterns and you see that that quilt is made all of half square triangles, then that's the only block you need. So it is truly very, very useful in quilting, and that's probably why it's not only the most basic but the most often used. And then the other one we're going to look at today is the diamond in a square. Now, again, very simple to do this. A couple more extra steps on this one than this one, but the process is the same and it's super easy to do. In fact, the process I show you today is the process when you use your embroidery machine that will work for any block that you're putting together. So these are the 2 we're going to do. Let's just set those aside. I have my fabrics available. Let me just tell you quickly that when you purchase a digital file design set or you get a free design set, you should get make sure it has full written instructions. It'd be great if it has templates or pictures or diagrams for you. And it should have your design file. So if you get the ones we have available at Sew in Common, that's the things that they have in them. And those are the things that will carry you through the process really easily. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but your instructions will tell you the sizes and stuff of your fabric, all of that. So let's talk next about stabilizer, because just like with all of our embroidery, we have to use a piece of stabilizer. So the most often used stabilizer is really a no-show mesh or a poly mesh. It's a cutaway. It typically stays in the back of your blocks. It can help give your quilts longevity, actually, because it helps to keep them from wearing. I'm also a quilt conservator, and so when I am repairing and conserving older quilts, a lot of the times the first thing I have to do is stabilize the backs of those older fabrics. So with a no-show mesh built into your bed quilt, you might be ahead of the game there. That's what I think. So you can use that. You can also use a lightweight muslin. If you want a truly 100% natural fiber stabilizer for piecing in the hoop, use a lightweight. Make sure it's a lightweight because you want to add the least amount of extra weight to the process. So use a lightweight muslin and it works beautifully. In fact, if you want to check that out, we have some videos on our channel here that will talk you through this whole process of using a lightweight muslin. And then one of the ones that not many people think about that I love is the traditional wash away or water soluble stabilizer, the kind that we use when we do freestanding lace. You only need 1 layer of it, and in the end, it can wash away from your entire squares, and then you don't have any stabilizer left at all. In fact, when we're done with our blocks today, I'll walk you through the process. I will be piecing today on a piece of wash away so that you can see how that works. Now, I left out probably everyone's favorite, and that is the tearaway stabilizer. And okay, I've got one over here that has tearaway in it, and I will show you why I don't particularly care for it. There it is. Alrighty, so here we have This is a string pieced square, another super easy one, great one to use if you want to get rid of your scrap fabric. We have these patterns available at our website, sewuncommon.com. But what I want to show you about this is the back. I pieced this one on a tearaway stabilizer. For the piecing process, it worked fine. It worked just fine. But here's the deal. When you're piecing in the hoop, we're really asking our embroidery machine to do the same thing that our sewing machine does. And so all of our stitches are just run stitches. You can see there's no satin stitch there. There's no fill stitches there. And so when we go to tear this out, the run stitch is probably the easiest stitch that will tear out. And so when you get in here to start doing your tearing out, you really have to get in here, and you really run the risk of getting in here and tearing those stitches. So I just don't like to use it. And I will say right now, I do not recommend using a tearaway for piecing in the hoop. Now, there are a ton of good reasons to use a tearaway for other types of embroidery. It's just not the best one for piecing. That's why we have so many great choices. So the other products I will recommend to you are these three. You're going to need a really good pair of snips because there's trimming like there is with any embroidery typically. And I like using scissors that have a micro serrated blade. A micro serrated blade gives you a really crisp cut, and it helps to keep your fabric from fraying. One of the reasons our fabrics fray sometimes is because if we're using duller scissors, right at the beginning, it's those scissors are pulling on the fibers of our fabric. And once it starts to pull, it starts the fraying process for us. Well, that's no good. But with a micro serrated blade, you get such a nice crisp cut that rarely happens. So that's why I like using a micro serrated blade. Any brand should be fine. I know someone's going to ask, so I'll just tell you, I use Karen K. Buckley scissors for my piecing and pretty much for all of my cutting needs that I need with scissors. But I know there are different brands that have micro serrated blades. If you don't have one like that, that's fine too. The other one I would recommend is a good pair of double curved, let's see, can you see it? That's better. A double curve, so it comes down, out, and then comes up just a little bit, of applique scissors. This will also work really well for trimming in the hoop. I'll try to remember to trim once with those so that you can see. So those are the scissors I'd recommend. I also recommend a seam roller, any kind of seam roller, a plastic one, a wooden one, a metal one, whatever you have. Because of the technique, which we'll talk about, you need to kind of roll your seams a little bit, flatten them out a little bit as you go. Now, you can finger press like we do in traditional quilting, not a problem, but a seam roller is really nice to get in there and flatten things out. So if I'm here and I'm in my hoop, doing that and flattening that out really helps that fabric to lay flat and beautiful when you're stitching. So you could take your hoop off every time and go over to your pressing station and use like a mini iron, but that's a lot of getting up and down. So if you want to get your steps in, you could use a mini iron too, for sure. And then the other thing I'm going to recommend to you is a fabric glue stick. And I'll show you what we do with this. Any glue stick made for fabric will be fine. Any school glue stick, like Elmer's, will work fine as long as those school glue sticks say that they're non-toxic, because fabric glue sticks are non-toxic, and so are some of those school glue sticks, because we don't want our kids working with toxic glue, right? So the reason we like that is because the chemicals that are used for non-toxic glues will not deteriorate and damage our fabric over time. I try to put as least amount of chemical on my fabric as possible for the longevity, basically, of my quilt. Even though I wash it, you just never know. And sometimes we don't wash right away, and the longer a glue sits on a fabric, over time, and I'm talking, years, not days or weeks or months, it can cause a problem. So the Sew Line is a good one. Fons and Porter has one. Any brand of fabric glue stick will work beautifully. So you would also want to have a good trimming ruler like this one. It's my favorite. It's a 3 by 12 inch. I use Quilter Select, but any ruler like this is fine, or any ruler that you use to trim your quilting or your embroidery projects is fine. And then, of course, for cutting your fabric, you'll want to have a good rotary cutter. A 45 millimeter works great. I will tell you, though, that when it comes to trimming at the end, I have a separate handle, and I like using a 45 millimeter pinking blade. Why? Because when we use it, let's take a look here between this side and this side. This side I just trimmed with my regular rotary cutter. This side with my pinking blade. A pinking blade is going to help you take out a little bit of the bulk in the seam. And if you're already a quilter, you know that getting the bulk out of your seams is a big deal. And so we try to do everything we can. In fact, we have a whole video here on the channel on tips and tricks that I use to get bulk out of the seams. And over 50 years, I've tried a lot of things, 50 plus years, I hate to say. I've tried a lot of things, and these are the ones that I use that are kind of tried and true. Okay, so those are the tools that you need. And of course, you will need your hoop. Now, if you're making big 12, 15-inch blocks, these jumbo blocks are so popular today. They're made in sections, in smaller squares, because nobody has a block that's going to fit a 15 by, or a hoop that's going to fit a 15 by 15 inch block, right? So that's okay. So sometimes you can get away with using just a 4 by 4 hoop. A 5 by 7 hoop will work beautifully for you just about every single time. Okay. Alrighty. So why don't we now go ahead and go over to our machine, and let's talk about some things over here and go ahead and get started. So I have my design here on my machine, and it's for my half square triangle, and it says we're making a 4 by 4 half square triangle. Cool. Doesn't matter the size, but that's the one we're making. I have my wash away stabilizer hooped on my hoop. Now I'm using a 6 by 6 hoop. It's my favorite piecing hoop. This hoop is available for Brother and Baby Lock machines. If your machine brand has one this size available, or roughly this size available, you might want to think about investing in it if you're going to do a lot of quilting and piecing in the hoop, because it's the perfect size. I just love this hoop, but a 5 by 7 will be perfect as well. So let's talk about thread for a minute. Normally, I piece with a light dove gray thread. You don't see it in the seams. It just blends in. It's a beautiful color. Brand does not matter. Just a 40 weight polyester or a 60 weight polyester embroidery thread is also wonderful. A 60 weight is slightly finer, takes a little bulk out of those seams, just like we were just talking about. But 40 weight is perfect for piecing your quilt blocks. Today, I'm going to be actually working with a 40 weight black embroidery thread so that you all can see it. So I'm here, I've got everything up, I'm hooped. The very first thing I'm going to do is step 1, which is going to be basically the boundary of my block and a little bit of a placement in this particular block. I'll come over here and grab my fabrics. So there's the boundary. That's going to be my finish. And now this line is kind of delineating the two halves for me, kind of giving me boundaries. Whoops, sorry about that. Placement. Okay. Now, when we piece in the hoop, there's really one basic rule. You could say it's two rules, but one basic rule. Your first fabric always gets laid down over the first section that your instructions tell you. And this time we're doing the upper part of our half square triangle. I want to make sure I can feel my thread here. So I just want to make sure that there's a little bit over that and over on the side there. So it's placed nicely. It's always laid out right side up. So let's go ahead and stitch this down. Now, if there is a lot of fabric right here after it stitches out, then I might want to trim it down. But you want to leave about 1/4 of an inch or so there. Typically, when we do embroidery projects, we will get up pretty close to that stitched line and trim away, but not when we piece in the hoop. We actually want about 1/4 inch there. That's a little over 1/4 inch. So why don't we go ahead and trim this one, and you can see. Now, when you trim, you always want to make sure that your hoop is on a good flat surface. And the reason you want to do that is because if you've got this on your knee, look at how it's starting to bubble just with my hand under it. If you dislodge your stabilizer, you could very easily get your design out of registration. And then you're going to have problems. Basically, you'll end up starting over. Now, I'm just trimming with my scissors here, and I'm not measuring or doing anything. I'm just trying to trim a little bit of that off because it was a little bit more than 1/4 inch there. That's a little bit better. It's not even cut completely straight. That's fine. Now let me talk about the other two sides here. There's more than 1/4 inch here and more than 1/4 inch here. That's okay, and I'm not going to worry about trimming it because it's beyond the boundary of my square. And so what this allows me to do, once I've done my whole square and I've taken it out of the hoop, then I'm going to take my ruler and my pinking blade and trim around it. So I want to leave that there. I don't want to waste my time with that. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is take my second fabric. Now, this fabric and all other fabrics. So if my block, you'll see this when we do the diamond in a square. Second fabrics and all other fabrics get laid on top of the first fabric right side down, or you might say pretty side down. Now, I just feel with my finger and I make sure that my fabric, where it's going to stitch, which is going to be right about there, that I have about 1/4 inch there. There's no need to measure it out and be absolutely precise on that. It's going to be fine. A lot of times leaving just a little bit of your under fabric peeking out will make sure that that block is in the absolute perfect place. So let me place this back into my machine and bring up my camera again. There we go. Now we're going to go ahead and stitch this out. So this is the half square triangle, and really with half square triangles, you're only dealing with 2 pieces of fabric. They go really quickly. So over here, it tells me that this would stitch out, if I didn't have to stop and flip and all of that, in 2 minutes. And I am set at 700 stitches per minute. So if that kind of thing interests you, you can see how quickly these can stitch out. But your blocks typically will stitch out in 2-3 minutes at the very most, depending on what your speed is set at. I don't stitch anything at my top speed of my machine. I'm sure my little machines would love to get up to those 1050 and 1080, whatever they are, but I don't use them. I don't believe in going fast. I do this for joy and fun. I don't need to be super fast at it, but you can certainly do that with your machine if you want to. So here we go. So The method of piecing in the hoop is called stitch, flip, and stitch again. I added that stitch again. So we've stitched this down. We've stitched this second piece down. Now what we're going to do is flip it and then stitch again to stitch it down. Okay, so here we can do a couple of things. If we want to make sure that our fabric, when we flip it, is going to lay really flat, that's when you can do just a little swipe of your glue stick. Bring it over and it will cover up your outer border. Then take your seam ruler and give that center seam a good roll. You could do this while it's still flat up here, but I wanted you to see this. And if you want to make sure everything is rolled nice and flat, taking it out works even better. Now I'm ready to place this back into my machine. Bring my camera back up, and we are going to finish the stitch out. Now, I will tell you that when I digitize my squares and my designs, I do them like this in the simplest way. The way I digitize piecing my squares is basically how I would do it on my sewing machine. The simplest scenario. If you purchase your designs from another company and their instructions are slightly different, just follow their instructions. They've worked for them, they've figured them out, and they're fine. But the process is still generally always the same. Stitch, flip, and stitch again, okay? So you should always follow whatever a designer says. Okay, so here we have it stitched out, but right here and right here, we have a couple of pieces that aren't quite stitched together because they were stitched in different ways. And here is where you can help yourself out by using a little bit of your paper tape, your embroidery tape, and putting a little piece over those pieces that where they come together. And you'll see this again when we do it with the diamond in a square. Here we go. And what that does, the last thing we do is we stitch the boundary box again, and that just holds everything together at all of those little intersections. And so having the tape there allows that to stitch without having your embroidery foot get caught on the fabric and causing all kinds of chaos and commotion. Now, if you're somebody who just wants to watch it and be very careful, that's fine, but the tape typically helps. You can use any embroidery tape that you like. If it's made for embroidery and you buy it at a fabric store, that's fine. If you buy a medical tape, make sure it says for sensitive skin. That is the same thing as saying non-toxic, like when we talked about the glue. And if you're going to use a painter's tape, then use one that says low tack or for fine finishes. That also has the least amount of chemicals in it for you. All right, so here we are. We're done with our half square triangle. So let's leave this and let's go back to our other camera. Here we go. And so we are going to now take this out of the hoop. I'm going to move my, here we go. We'll take this out of the hoop. So here we go. So I want to go ahead and take my tape out. And even though these tapes come out pretty easily, please be gentle. Don't just get in there and start really ripping hard because, again, we're working with run stitches and they are just a little bit easier to pull out if we're not a little bit gentle with them. There we go. We've got that off now. And now we can trim this. So I'm going to take my ruler and my rotary cutter with my pinking blade and make sure that your ruler has a 1/4 inch marker on it. And then you're going to put that 1/4 inch right on that stitch line. Okay. Because what we're doing when we cut now is we are creating our perfect 1/4 inch seam for when we go to sew these together. And I will show you that. Whoops, my bottle of water fell over. And just check that. That darker fabric's a little harder. Here's another thing you might be interested in. If you have trouble seeing close up or you want a little magnification, I like these little craft store magnifiers. I just got these at my local Michael's. I don't even know what brand they were. There was only whatever type they had there. And I like using them when I need to see, like, especially here where I'm using this darker fabric. It helps me make sure I get lined up on that seam really well. I can see it a little bit more clearly. Again, I have eyes that are over 60 years old now, so it that might be why it's helpful for me. There we go. And now we are done. And with my rotary cutter, like I was telling you, it's taken out a little bit of the bulk with the pinking. And now I'm going to do that same idea to my corners. You can, if you're want to be a little cautious. I sometimes throw caution to the wind, but if you want to be a little cautious when you're doing that, just take the 1/4 inch mark again, put it right on, here you can see this one easier, put it right on that corner, and then cut. And there we go. We are done with the 1/2 square triangle. Now, while we're here, let me show you how you get this stabilizer out, this water soluble. Normally when we use water soluble like this, and please do not use the clear topper. It's not made for this. It's too thin. And you don't need the heavy duty clear one either, which is perfect for some other types of projects, but it's too much for this. Normally, when we use a wash away stabilizer, we dip the whole piece in water and soak it, and this literally just dissolves away. But who wants to get all their blocks completely wet, right? No way. So invest in a little water pen. You can get them at your local fabric shops, your local art stores, craft stores. Don't use anything in here but water. Don't add, if it comes with a bottle of conditioner, don't use it for this process. It's kind of wasting the conditioner. So all you want to do is take it, put your water in it, and then what I do is I trace my seams. Now, my block is going to get a little wet, but I don't care because the next part of my process after I've done all of this is to take my blocks over and give them a good press, and that will take care of any dampness that's in here. And I just trace around all of the seams. There we go. Now, because wash away is made from a starch, it's a little sticky, so I like using a little pair of tweezers. I get in under there and I just get it started, and then see, it's just coming out. So I haven't had to dissolve all of that. I can just throw that away now. I can get in here and pull away my edges. Oops. There we go. So I can pull away my edges, pull away my other half. Okay, oops, see, now I didn't get that part wet. So let's come back in here because I don't want to be rough with it, and give that a little bit of a brush so it gets wet. There we go. That part's done. Then I take that out, and I'll take, come on, get in there. All right, let me throw this piece away. I try to touch it the least amount possible because then I get sticky fingers. And then you might want to just, yeah, I didn't get this wet down here either. So let's get that wet so it just starts the dissolving process. There we go. You can tell I get a little smudgy stuff there from doing this on my mat. It just washes right off with a damp cloth when I think about it. Okay, so now I have my block, my square, my 1/2 square triangle. It's all done. And I can just take all of my blocks once I'm done over to my pressing station and press them all out. Then I will sew them together. And I'll talk to you about that after we do our next one. So that's our half square triangle. We'll just set that over here. Now let's go ahead and let's load our hoop. Just dry that off. I don't want any wetness getting on this new piece of stabilizer and starting it dissolving. So there we go. Now the next one we're going to do is our diamond in a square. Now, some patterns that you purchase might have a template in it so that you can pre-cut your fabric shapes. And I've always thought that was a pretty good idea until I really started thinking about it. And with quilting, most of our shapes are squares or triangles, and then they make other shapes. It's not really necessary, I found. If you have a piece of fabric that you start out as a square and you cut it on the diagonal, you're going to have plenty, and then you're also going to have plenty to trim away at the end when you're trimming out your final border. And see that? Isn't that lovely? That's just like as if you'd done it on the sewing machine. No stabilizer left at all. So I don't worry about pre-cutting templates anymore. And in my patterns, you will see, it will tell you like cut a 6 by 6 inch square and then cut it in two on the diagonal, because that will give you, you might have a piece left over. It says set that aside. You'll use that for another block. So that's really as in-depth as you need to get for that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and go back now to our other camera over at our machine. There we go. Now we're going to place our hoop in, and I am going to bring up my other pattern. And you load your patterns onto your embroidery, onto your USB stick, just like you would with any other design. Here it is. Okay. So this one I set up a little bit different. And I'm actually, well, no, I set it up a little bit different. Instead of doing a complete boundary box, we start out with the diamond boundary box. So just a little bit of a different process here, but the same idea. So the first thing we're going to stitch out is the diamond, or the center. So we're stitching out the boundary of this piece right here. Now this one that's on my machine is a prototype, so I have to back up so I can stitch my piece out again. So don't look at the man behind the curtain on that one. So now I'm going to lay my block on here. Now my piece of fabric is plenty big and I will have to do some trimming, but that's okay. I can trim with those other scissors. I can trim with those and let you see how that works. But your instructions should always give you a generous amount of fabric, but I will be honest, this particular piece is a little bit over generous. I was just cutting quickly so that I could get all my pieces ready for us. Okay, so that is our first two steps. Now we're going to bring this down here and we're going to trim it all the way around this time. So I'm going to use my double curved embroidery scissors. And I really like these when I do need to get up really close to something. I actually feel like I can cut a straighter line with these than I can with my serrated ones, but I just love those serrated ones so much. You can even see my cutting is a lot more even. There's second half. But just let me tell you my thoughts. Trying to be perfect is the thief of joy, okay? This is something you want to do for fun. This is something you want to do because you enjoy the fiber arts. Nobody should be judging you unless you're entered in a contest, and then follow their rules because they will judge you. And as a quilt judge, I'm probably more lenient on some stuff and stricter on others, but follow their rules for sure. But don't worry about being perfect. That's all I'm trying to say, because really there's no such thing as perfection. It's in the eye of the beholder. Isn't that an old saying? Okay, so here we go. Now, my instructions tell me that the next part I'm going to lay down is going to be for this corner, the upper left corner. So my second piece of fabric, I'm going to lay it right side down, and I'm just letting a wee bit of my under fabric peek through the bottom. Let me lay that there and bring up my camera. There we go. And here we go. Now, if I want, I can put a swipe of my glue stick there. You do not have to use the glue stick. It just can be helpful because I don't always like to take my piece out when I flip it. And so that helps it, see how it's laying nicely. And then I come in and I give that a little seam roll. And then I usually take my finger in here and give that back part a little seam roll that this won't get under my foot there. And now we're going to stitch this down. So we've stitched, we've flipped, and now we're going to stitch it again. Now, here is the reason I don't do any, sorry, I bumped this. The reason I don't do any trimming here, because all of this excess fabric is outside the boundary again. I'll trim that off at the end. Okay, so now the next piece is telling me it's going to be right here. So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I just did, laying this piece right side down, and now we will stitch it. So second and all subsequent pieces when you're piecing get laid right sides together or right side down. And because this one is kind of in the back, I will just pull it forward a little bit. And because I can now pretty easily, I will roll the whole seam with my seam roller. Now, honestly, I know someone's going to ask me, and I don't know who makes this seam roller. I've had it forever and a day. But any seam roller works just fine. Now we're going to stitch this down. I have one that's all plastic. It works fine even. Let's see, on this little tool that I use as a pointer, this is actually a multi-function tool. It has a stiletto. It has a seam. It's not really a roller. It's kind of a seam press there. And then it has a seam ripper over on the other side. I never use it for anything but pressing or for pointing these days. But this is an Alex Anderson tool, her 4-in-1 essential sewing tool by C&7 Publishing. So I think this was a freebie that I got in at a convention or something. So I've had it forever. It's a nice tool. I just don't always use it for all of those things. So now I'm going to lay my next piece down, which is right here. So with the diamond in a square, you're really going to be stitching down 5 pieces of fabric, your main diamond piece, which is this piece, and then you just move clockwise around your corners. But because the half square triangle is so simple to do, they're all simple, but I know when folks see squares that have more than one piece, they get a little confused or they get a little anxious. I didn't want you to be anxious because there's nothing to be anxious about. So I wanted to stitch out another block for you so that you could see that. And if you go through and watch my videos, if you go through and watch any of the block of the month videos for 2023, you'll see stitching out. In fact, I have a video where I stitch out all of the component blocks for our March block of the month. I'll show you that before we leave today. So you can see that they're all done pretty much exactly the same. They just have fewer or more pieces than the half square triangle. That's all. And here is our last piece. And because everything ends up outside of the boundary box, there's really no trimming that you have to do with the diamond in a square, which is kind of nice because like I'm doing, You can leave it right on your hoop if you want to. Bring that out nice and flat. And we'll do the last stitch out here. Now we will be going around and doing a final stitch all the way around the border of the block, and I will share with you again what I do for that, and we'll bring this out and I'll show you. Before we stitch that, let's bring this down to our surface, and let's bring in my tape again. So you can see here that here's a flippy piece, here's a flippy piece, and a flippy piece, and a flippy piece. If I just let my machine go, that foot, I will guarantee, will catch that, and it'll end up like this and all wonky. No, 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 no. I can, I could sit and babysit it, and I do, even with tape, but I don't want to have to worry about it being a problem. So we're just going to, once again, put our little piece of tape over those gathers. Now, when I do the block I showed you earlier, the string piecing, it's got a lot of little edges like that. So I just tape all 4 sides down, whatever is required. Tape is inexpensive and it can really save you some headaches. So there we go. And now we're going to place it back into the machine and bring up the camera, and we'll stitch that final, there we go, we'll stitch that final square, or that final shape, all the way around the block. Okay, we're done with this one. Now let's go back to our other camera and we'll talk about different blocks here for a moment. Whoops, yeah. Is that what I want? Hang on. Let me take this one out of the stream completely and then bring this one in. Wait a minute, I'm confused. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Gosh, I got confused on which camera I was on for a moment. All right, so here I am. I've got my block there. I'm just going to go ahead and take my tape out now and then remove it from the hoop. It doesn't matter what order you remove things from the hoop, or, when you take your tape out. Now, if you get little pieces of tape that stay there, just take your little tweezers and peel those right off. Again, that gentle touch will be your friend when it comes to those run stitches. And I don't mean to scare you and say, oh my gosh, just, you're going to have to really be careful, because you don't. But I know that when we do other types of embroidery with tape and stuff like that, we just get in there and yank it around. And with a satin stitch or a fill stitch, you can be a little more aggressive because those stitches are a little more hardy. But the run stitch is, I would say, it's still a very strong stitch. It just is the one that can start to come out the easiest. Alrighty, there we go. Now we'll take this one out and we'll trim it, and we'll talk about some different squares. I'll show you some, and we'll talk about how you would sew these together. Because someone out there is saying, can't I do a whole block in the hoop, like all the pieces? Well, you can if the whole block fits your biggest hoop. For sure you can. I'm going to set that over there. But because a lot of folks want to do this and they want to use some of these beautiful quilting patterns that they see out on the market that have these beautiful jumbo blocks, you have to do them in different squares. It really is like any other type of quilting in that way. So I'm just lining that up, doing my trimming. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Are you brand new to quilting and this is the first quilting technique you're learning? Have you done some other types of quilting that you feel like this might be more your speed? What has brought you to this video? What has made you want to quilt and piece with your embroidery machine? Because I do have videos on the site, on the channel, that also help you with your finish quilting, because you can truly piece and finish quilt the whole thing from soup to nuts right on your embroidery machine. The only thing we haven't quite figured out yet is how to do the binding, but that's a small part of the overall process. All right, here we go. So there is our diamond in a square. Now you can see how like really light and how this has movement to it because we took the stabilizer out just like you would if you were sewing that together on a sewing machine. And this one is a little bit, I mean, it still has some movement, but it's a little bit stiffer only because the stabilizer is still in there. That's fine. Alrighty, so we've done the diamond in a square. We've done the half square triangle. I've shown you string piecing. And we have a brand new video coming out on string piecing a pyramid. Isn't that fun? But these are more blocks that you use with your scrap fabrics. But let me show you a few more blocks. This one is a modified half square triangle. Let me move these out and let's talk about this one for a moment. So a modified half square triangle, half of it looks just like this half of our regular half square triangle, right? They look exactly the same. But on this half, instead of being a single piece of fabric, we've modified it and we've done two pieces of fabric. Pretty cool, huh? So that's a different type of square. And I'm only showing you a few. There are so many. We also, in the March block of the month, we are doing the quarter square triangle is one of the blocks. The quarter square triangle is actually a two-step process. Because of the flip and stitch method, you stitch out one half and then the other half, and then you sew them together. And I'll talk about sewing together here in a moment. To get your quarter square triangle. Okay. And I know someone's saying out there, can't you do that stitching on your embroidery machine? And you can. The reason I don't like to is because when you have to rehoop again to stitch these together, and you end up, well, you're hooped on the one side already, and then you put this on. This side ends up with another piece of stabilizer here, and it's weird. So I just say do it in the two pieces and do a little sewing on your sewing machine, and you'll see how easy the sewing is. Super easy. Do I have a double modified in here? I should. Yeah, here we go. This one is called a double modified half square triangle. So I bet you see the difference. So here is our modified and our regular half square triangle. Half square triangle, two pieces of fabric. Modified is three pieces. On this one, these two pieces are the same fabric, but you could do them in three completely different fabrics if you like. And the double modified, half of it is just like the half square triangle, and the other half is four pieces of fabric. Kind of fun. And you'll see, in our March square, we use these two, and let's see if I can find my other one really easily here. I know it's here. It's a diamond in a square, but it's got a little twist on it, and I want to show it to you. These are, I just keep stacks and stacks of squares, and when I get a bunch of them, then I make up quilts sometimes. So, and I like to keep lots of them so that I can show them to you all. So here are the three basic squares that we use in the March block of the month. All of our block of the month sets are completely free throughout all of 2023. So please grab those. You're going to be building up your block collection and you're going to be making some really beautiful larger squares. So double modified half square triangle, quarter square triangle, and your diamond in a square, but there's a little twist because on this diamond in a square, we've done 3 corners the same and 1 corner different. So why don't we, let me show you how these would get sewn together first, and then I'll show you how those get used. Alrighty. So I'm going to take a half square triangle and my diamond. Those are the 2 we made today. So if I'm going to sew them together on my sewing machine, I just line them up along whatever line side I'm going to sew. Now, if these were my regular blocks, I would have to have a 1/4 inch foot on my sewing machine, and I'd have to measure and make sure it was a quarter or a scant quarter or all that kind of honestly nonsense. But a quarter is a quarter is a quarter, but there's a big debate over the scant and the 1/4 inch, which we won't talk about here. But when you piece in the hoop, you don't need that foot, okay? Didn't mean to ramble there, honestly. Because this stitched line that we trimmed out around, that is your 1/4 inch. So when you go to your sewing machine, use your regular foot, put your needle right here. Don't put it in the fabric, just bring it down by hand to right there, and then bump it with the features on your sewing machine. 1 bump over, just 1 bump over, so that when you stitch down, you're following this line and you are going to get the perfect seam. And when you roll them over, you're not going to see those lines. And trust me, again, if you do see a little line because you got a little off, don't beat yourself up. Remember, perfect is the thief of joy in this process. So just stitch and then flip and press, and they're sewn together. So let's leave this camera and go back to our main camera now. And let me show you this block behind us. This is our March block of the month. And some of you that are new are saying, I'll never be able to do that. That's too complicated, Diana. Well, I just showed you the 3 little blocks. These are the only blocks you make to make that entire 15 by 15 inch square. Or these are the only squares that you use to make that block. Super simple. It's the pinwheel star. It's one of many versions of the pinwheel star. It's the one I chose to design for us this month. Super easy. See this one back here? That is the crossover star. That's the one that I used the modified half square triangle, the diamond in a square, and the half square triangle. All of these pattern sets, which give you your digital files, give you your written instructions, everything is available at our website, www.sewincommon.com. All block of the month for 2023 are completely free. So grab them. Even if you never make this block, you have these different squares that you can use in any design you wish to put together. You might see a quilt pattern. Let me just grab one over here. I really want to make this, but this is a pattern to be made on the sewing machine. But I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it on my embroidery machine. And so I can just follow the instructions by picking out which one of my blocks I need to make these. Okay, so there's no need for you to get concerned about it because you'll have block sets that you can use on lots of different things. So even if you don't really like that block, grab the pattern so that you get these 3 block pieces. Okay, so because at the end of 2023, when it becomes 2024, they'll no longer be free and you might as well get them now. I'm going to give you one little announcement. Today is the 14th of March, 2023. The January block of the month, which was the half square triangle. All we did that month was the half square triangle, and we made a really cool game board looking project. It is coming off of the website until next week. And I'm not giving you a date yet because I have a really busy rest of this week and next week. But I'm taking it down because I want to update a couple of things. I want to give you some better diagrams, and I want to give you a map and some other things in that pattern that I don't like how I put that pattern out there completely. I want to upgrade it and make it a little bit better. Still going to be free. And if you already have it, you can download it again, get rid of your old one, keep the new one. So for the January one, don't go out there and grab that because I'm taking it down for about a week, and then it'll come back up. But you will get half square triangles in your February block of the month. And then you'll get the larger diamond in a square, the modified half square triangle. All of these are 5-inch finished. And then these are a little bit smaller. Okay. But you're going to get your double modified, your diamond in a square smaller, and your quarter square triangle. And one last thing I should make sure I tell you is that when we piece in the hoop, we always talk about finished sized blocks, because all of that seam allowance that you have to worry about in other quilting techniques is taken care of in the pattern for you, okay, in the design file. So you don't have to worry about that. So I'll say a 5-inch block, I mean a 5-inch finished block. If I say it's a 4-inch finished block, it's a 4-inch block, okay? So that is can be helpful to you, especially if you're new. All right, folks, that is piecing a quilt block in the hoop from soup to nuts, from A to Z, however you want to say it. I hope it was helpful. This has been a requested video from several of our friends here at Sew in Common. So I hope it was helpful for them as well. I love doing videos that you all request. So please, if you have a video that you want to request for piecing in the hoop, contact me at my email address, diana@sewincommon.com. Leave your comments below if you have questions about what I showed today. If you want to share your piecing in the hoop journey with us, we'd love to hear it. Let us know that in the comments as well. And if you want to post your photographs and you have like an Instagram or something of your own, just make sure and tag us and with the @SewInCommon and the hashtag #SewInCommon. That way I can see the pictures, I can look for them and find them. And then at the end of the month, on the 4th week of the month, during our block of the month, I always share those photos in the live Q&A, because the 4th Sunday is always the live Q&A. Or if you don't post anywhere else, you can post at our Facebook page. And guess what that's called? Sew in Common. So you can post your photographs over there and I can find them there as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Now, if you have followed us for a while, you know how I end all of our videos. But if you're brand new to us, I will just tell you this. As quilters, you are artists in your own right. No one has the right to tell you that you've done something badly or wrongly, or that your colors didn't go together, or your seams didn't match beautifully. They don't have that right, because you're the artist, and as long as you love it, that's all that matters. What you do and send out to your family and your friends does this. You are sewing life beautiful. You are making life and the world more beautiful through the quilts that you put out. So everybody, until I see you next time, go make some squares and sew life beautiful. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching today.